Here's the
I'm gonna sneeze.
crowd.
Oh gosh.
A new puppy. What?
Nothing.
You gotta clap at the beginning too.
How am I supposed to do that?
Hello, thank you for joining me today and taking time out of your day to go over the future of bicycling. So in 1864, two Frenchmen would invent something that would change the landscape of transportation forever, whether it would be going across the French landscapes or something that you learn as a young child and never forget. I'm of course talking about the bicycle. And the next big wave when it came to the bicycle was in 1998 when there was a huge boom in the sale of e-bikes. So an e-bike is simply just a bicycle, two wheels. The only big difference is that it comes with a motor, usually mounted in this crank area where it assists the rider, and it feels like instant engagement as you pedal. So you pedal and you can go faster, quicker, and easier. Now, the conversation about e-bikes and loosening up the legislation around them may not be as noble as legalizing marijuana or same-sex marriage, but it is important because this is the future of transportation, and the current legislation is just simply delaying its progress. Now, also why you need to know this is that these are only becoming more and more popular. E-bike sales from last year are up 80%, and e-bike sales are up 80% from last year, and 31 million of these were sold back in 2012, and that number is only growing according to Outside Magazine. I chose this topic because I myself actually own one. This is my e-bike, and I'm a new rider, and as I rode around on it, I, number one, felt a huge stigma from the mountain bike community over it, and was told a lot of times that it's actually illegal to ride these bikes in places. And one day I was actually asked by somebody to advocate for them in a certain trail system, so I began my research then. I used various sources like bicyclehistory.net, Outside Magazine, 5280 Magazine, and legal documents. And to understand the problem, we first need to understand what is the need, why are these important, and that's that these are the future. This is what transportation is going to look like as time goes on. So what is the satisfaction to that need? These need to be seen as a bicycle. Right now they are often not in legislation. And then third, what is this call to action going to look like for you guys? And it's basically just to get out onto an e-bike, ride it, feel it, understand what it is, and then take the information I gave you today and your experience, and then if you feel comfortable, write to your local legislation and try to get these changed. So, the need. In 2017, Denver legalized e-bikes to be rode, but what they did was they classified e-bikes in three categories. Class 1 is an e-bike that assists pedaling up to 20 miles per hour, so once you reach that speed, the motor turns off and it is just you propelling it. Class 2 is very similar to Class 1 in that it is assisted up to 20 miles per hour, but often they will have a throttle or some kind of a pedal-less assist on them. And then Class 3 is the one that is very debated over, and that is any e-bike that assists you over 28 miles per hour. Or over 20 miles per hour. Now, Class 3 is considered a moped at this point because you can go over 20 miles per hour. And this bike actually right here is technically a Class 3 bike, which they consider a moped. But as you can see, this is not a moped that I carried up 3 flights of stairs. It is simply a bicycle. Colorado is actually one of 34 states that highly regulates e-bike usage. It is a home rule state, which means that the state leaves local city governments and county governments to make the laws around the e-bikes. And actually Longmont is very strict, and I was actually riding in a trail system near Longmont when I was approached by that man that told me I should advocate for him. And it really upset me because it's taking somebody who's riding a bicycle out of bicycling merely because of antiquated legislation. So we see the need that these are unjustly looked at as mopeds, but what is going to be the change? So the last time nationally that e-bikes were looked at was in 2002, a mere 4 years after the boom of the sales. These bikes have changed drastically, just like cars from 1998 and 2019 look vastly different now. These bikes are lighter. Yes, they go faster, but they stop better. They have better traction. Overall, they're a safer bicycle. The big message here is people need to understand that this is just a bicycle. Russell Cosgrove, an avid e-biker, said, "Some might believe riding an e-bike is similar to a motorcycle, but my experience is quite the opposite." He told this to Outside Magazine, and he then went on to further explain that his bike at the time was governed to about 25 miles per hour, but he usually only kept it at about 14, which is a speed that is very easily reached on a normal bicycle. Another important study was in 2015. The public was shown a bike very similar to this. It was just a little smaller. It's actually made by Specialized as well. And they were asked whether it was a bicycle, a motorcycle, or if the people seeing it did not know what it was. And 67% thought that this was a bicycle, in fact. So if the public thinks it's a bicycle, how come the government doesn't? So now we know that these laws need to be updated and e-bikes need to be more free, but what is that going to look like? Why is this even remotely important? Mainly, e-bikes get more people on bikes. It gets people who are elderly and who cannot ride bikes on bikes, and it gets people who are disabled on bikes as well. Another important thing about this is it helps people who are already interested in bikes ride bikes more. In a study of 1,800 e-bike users, 55% said before they got their e-bike they rode daily, which is a pretty high number considering how much riding daily is. But then after getting their e-bike, that number skyrocketed to 91%. So then we also look at e-bikes in transportation, and they see that people who own e-bikes are way more likely to commute to work because they're not going to be all sweaty and gross when they get to work because the bike's assisted. And you're going to just get an overall less driving, because when you're being able to e-bike and commute to work safely, you're going to drive less and you're going to create less pollution. These are noiseless. They make the same noises that a bicycle does. So overall, it creates a greener and just more futuristic world. So what is the action I'm asking you look like? I want you guys to ride these. I want you to go to your local bike shop and demo one for free. I'm not asking you to buy them. They are expensive. I want to see you ride it, understand it, feel that engagement, feel the different levels that the bike uses. And then from there, you can go, and if you're comfortable with it and you know the information I gave you today, you can then contact your local legislation and talk about it and urge them to change that. The main takeaway from this is that I want you to understand that this is a mere bicycle. It's not a motorcycle. It's not any more dangerous than a normal bicycle, and it only goes as fast as you want it to go. So that is all, and a part I didn't tell you guys about, but do you have any questions?
No.
Can you ask me some questions?
How fast does this bike go?
This bike goes 28 miles per hour, which is about as fast as e-bikes go. I myself have never reached that, and that's an argument that is very much held to e-bikes. There was actually a study done, and I cannot credit it correctly, but they did a study on how fast people were going on average on normal bicycles versus when they got e-bikes, and the difference was about a mile per hour more on an e-bike.
Okay.
Can it go on any type of terrain or just sidewalks and streets?
So this e-bike, functionality-wise can go on any terrain because it's an e-mountain bike. It has full suspension, but legally, I can't even ride this on gravel paths because you're not allowed. Basically, any law that applies to a moped or like those small CC'd engines like the Groms and stuff apply to this. So that includes trails as well that say there's no motorized vehicle access because this technically has a motor and is considered a motorized vehicle.
Do you have to have a license to have it on the street, or can you ride it on the street like a normal bike?
You do not need a license. That is the one difference. In Colorado, you don't. In some states, you do, which I think the lack of the license is due to the fact that they have those mass ride-sharing networks. You see those e-bikes downtown that are much slower, and those actually fall into the class 1. That's why they're super allowed. But it also depends, like further that beyond, it depends state by state, because some states you're required to ride a motorcycle with a helmet, and then inversely you're required to ride a e-bike with a helmet. But I believe in Colorado that you do not need an e-bike, and you do not need a license to ride it.
Okay.
Are there any other?
I don't have any.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I got a blind diploma.
I'm sorry.
How do you stop this?